Welcome to the Startempire Wire Founders Podcast, where we make entrepreneurial founders a top priority. Each episode features risk takers, business builders, community shapers, institutional and government supporters in our local startup ecosystem. Tune in weekly to hear all about what's happening with the movers and the shakers of Southern California's Inland Empire and beyond. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Founders Podcast. Today, we have a great podcast with Dr. Keanon Alderson. He is at Cal Baptist University, and he's officially, I'll let him give his title for you, and once he does a brief introduction. But what he's doing is working with a bunch of family business and teaching in that department, but I'll let him specify. So Keanon, welcome to the Founders Podcast. Thank you for coming on, and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into it.
Well, first off, thank you, Various. I appreciate it greatly. It's an honor to be interviewed here. I've been in business for quite a long time. I started at my family's vitamin company when I was in high school, and we had that for 17 years. I wish I knew then what I know now about family business. We probably still would have the company. We sold out in 1992, and it didn't quite have a full transition to the second generation, which was my brother and myself. And the purpose of it was to pass it on through the generations and build intergenerational wealth. So we did not do that. That's what got me interested in family business. So I went to school, got done with my degree, jumped to GlaxoSmithKline, a large pharmaceutical company, spent 15 years there in sales training, sales management. And then I came to CBU, which is where I went to school. So I'm blessed to teach here.
Yeah.
Dr. Jabs was one of my teachers. The School of Business is called the Robert K. Jabs School of Business.
Awesome.
So he was one of my teachers, and he's the one that I'm a teacher because of him.
So cool.
I didn't like teachers before. They were just, they're just blowhards,
Yeah, right?
So,
not cool.
yeah. So here I am. Now I am one, but I love talking business, right? So
yes.
I teach a family business management class here. I'm a professor of business. So I teach the sales class. I teach the family business management class and org behavior, things like that. I did my dissertation when I did my doctoral program on second generation family business decision making, because we knew how the first generation makes decisions. That's the entrepreneur, that's the founder. We already knew that. That's been well studied. We knew how the third generation made decisions, where there's 20 cousins involved in the business. The only way you can make a decision with 20 people is to have the democratic process of voting. But we didn't know how two siblings would make a decision or three siblings would make a decision. So that's what I researched, and that's what I discovered on my journey there. So
wow. So in our brief conversation before the podcast, you really mentioned some really amazing stats about this region. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
You're right. They are fascinating. As your audience full well knows, there is not a single headquartered Fortune 500 firm here. There's no headquarters of a Fortune 500 firm here. What we have in the inland region are numerous small and medium-sized enterprises. We have a lot of manufacturing companies, a lot of service businesses, a lot of construction companies. And if you think small business, well, the stat is 80% of them are owned or controlled by a family.
That's huge.
So it dominates. And then the next amazing stat, right from the Census Bureau. So there's 387 metropolitan statistical areas around the country we call MSAs, and the Riverside, San Bernardino, Ontario MSA. In the entire nation, we have more family-owned firms than any other MSA in the entire nation. It's amazing. So that's my passion. I want to help family firms survive to the next generation and pass on the intergenerational wealth.
Yes.
It keeps the family together. It employs people. Massive amount of employment, massive amount of new jobs are fueled by small business and family business.
It's family business. So I like the distinction that you made between the entrepreneur the second generation and the third generation, because most of the time you don't think, I have never thought of it in that term, and when I became an entrepreneur, I simply said I want to pass something on to my kids because I'm first generation, and most of the people who are listening to this are like first generation. So what are some of the statics and dynamics of family intergenerational businesses from like second to third generation?
Here's another fun statistic. Only 30% of family firms pass on from the first generation to the second.
Only 30%? Wow.
Only 10 to 15% of those pass on from the second to the third. And then it's dismal. Only 4% pass on from the third to the fourth generation.
That's insane.
It is insane. When you see, look at all that intergenerational wealth that just evaporates, right?
Yeah,
it just goes wherever. When you take a look at a firm that's been around for 10 generations or 7 generations or something like that, we have to take off our hat to those people. Look at the challenges. The challenges that they went through.
Achievement, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those challenges. So some people think that there's nothing different about a family-owned business than any other business. So on the surface, they're partially correct.
Right.
A family firm has to worry about employees and labor and lawsuits and pricing and the competition and the economy. They have to worry about all the same things that any other business has to worry about. But now you add in the dimension of the family dynamic on top of it, and it gets incredibly complicated. What if you were in partner with one of your siblings and your nephew crashed the company truck for the third time because of a substance abuse problem, let's say, you would probably want to fire that individual, but your sibling would probably not, because that's their son or daughter.
Yeah.
That's their family. So wow. we have a way of dealing with this. That causes conflict, right? So we have a way of dealing with this, and it's we can make some documents and we can use some proper governance tools, which I'll get into a little bit later, to prevent these things, to head them off at the pass, and everyone makes this decision before we're in an emotionally charged event, and they all agree to it.
Well, and I would say probably the difference between like a regular employee versus a family member is like you can't just like say, okay, I'm no longer dealing with you. You're fired, right? Because people got to come to the family reunion, so how does that get dealt with?
That's a good one. And that's always awkward, right? I interviewed one family business in Huntington Beach where the son got fired 13 times.
13.
I was talking to a painting contractor that's a family business, and the daughter was working at the family business during her summer break from college. Yeah. And she came home after curfew, and mom fired her from her job. So in other words, I looked at her and I said, wait a minute, you messed up in your personal life and you paid the price in your professional
on your job.
Life. Yeah. So look at the complication of that. That is just complex, right?
Yeah. So how do families typically need to separate family life from like professional life?
Is a great question. Very hard to do. Easier said than done, right? But some of the tools that we recommend are governance tools.
Okay.
So, for example, a document that we call the Family Constitution. I have a list of about 165 questions that I go through with families, and we talk about what's the company car policy, what's the salary policy, what's the compensation and benefits policy, how long is vacation for each family, who should a family member report to, what happens when we have a conflict, what's the process for solving that process without losing the relationship, which should be the most important thing rather than just money.
Okay.
Right? And so we go through and we make this document, and then everyone signs it at the end. It's not a legal document, but everyone agrees because they had input into writing it. Everyone agrees that these are the rules we're going to live by. And most importantly, you put the mission up at the top, the vision, the values, the purpose of the company way up on the top, and everyone should agree. Right? Especially if it's a multi-generational firm, because they have so much respect and awe for, let's say, grandparents that came before them.
Yes.
They're probably well off because of what grandma and grandpa did.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so one of the first things they think about is, how does this decision affect grandma and grandpa's legacy?
Wow.
Now, when it's a husband and wife and they're starting their family business and they'd like to pass it on to their children, they have slightly different dynamics, right? You need to separate business from home life. You need to keep the romance alive. You need to keep the argument at work and not bring it home, right? You need to have date night. You need to have relationship time.
Okay, so as a question, that it really is a real, that's an interesting question, because I've always thought, I'm a single guy, but once I get married, okay, I would love to have my wife working with me. How do you do that? That's crazy.
I have a bit of an answer. It works for me.
Okay.
I've been involved with my wife's business. She's an interior designer, and she started her business about 30 years ago. I don't know anything about design,
right?
But I'm a co-owner, and when she has an issue that's in my area of expertise, she discusses it with me. If it has to do with colors or fabrics or matchy,
right.
She does not talk to me about that at all.
Right.
When someone is late on paying, when someone is, if there's an issue, that's when she talks to me. So I stay out of her business, and she approaches me when it's an area of my expertise when I can give her some help. Other than that, she runs her business.
That makes sense. And do you have to, how do you keep the business out of the home life? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's another big one, right?
That is something that we need to be very purposeful about. We need to have boundaries.
Yes.
And then it's one of the best things to do is just a specification of roles.
Right.
So,
okay.
For example, my wife and I used to own a diet center franchise together.
Okay.
And she did the customer service aspect of it.
Yes.
And I did the sales and marketing and the advertising. She did her thing. I did my thing. I did the finances, and we didn't intermingle.
Clash.
We talked, but we didn't intermingle. She had her thing, I had my thing, and we respected each other's boundaries. Here's a fun thing about multi-generational firms.
Yes.
So, because when I teach my family business management class, I'll have students in my class that want to go into their family's business. And let's say their dad started it. And I'll ask, the students are like 18 years old, 20 years old, something like that. And I'll ask, how old's dad? And dad's like 40, 45.
Yeah.
Dad is still trying to make his mark on the world. He's still vibrant.
Still there. Yeah.
He's not anywhere near thinking of retiring or being put out to pasture or anything. And he gets really defensive when that happens. So the best way of doing that is, number one, separation of roles.
Yes.
Right. Dad does that. Junior does that.
Right.
But also what we advise is not to enter the family business immediately. Go get some experience outside. Go get a job at a competitor, a supplier, a customer, and learn.
A competitor.
Learn their business, right? Learn their business, and then come back with some new tools and ways of doing business. Hey, Dad, did you think of this? So between the degree and the new knowledge, and usually they're more technically savvy than their parents.
Oh, yeah.
So they have this massive respect. Then the parents will respect them. The employees will respect them. Yes. And they'll respect themselves as well, that they got the job on their own merits, not just because their name's on the front door.
Okay. So you guys just had a launch of some type, or what happened? What was that?
Yes, thank you very much. So because of that emphasis on the amount of family firms there are here, we are going to be starting here at CBU a family business center. And it's going to be I'm very excited. It's taken 10 years for me to do this, so I'm very excited. We're going to be a resource to the community. All of the family firms that are out there, we're going to bring them in, have breakfast, say, for half an hour, and networking and things like that, and then two speakers. So we'll be talking about, here's how to handle this problem, and then we'll have a speaker that says, here's what happened to me in my family business. This is what we did. Or
so like an experience type.
Yeah. And it'll be round tables. And one of the more important things about family firms is the owners, they feel very lonely. There's no one to talk to. When they go home at the end of the day and they turn on the stock channel, no one's talking about family firms and their problem with their brother-in-law. Or when they get in the car to go home on the financial radio station, no one's talking about those issues. They have no one to talk to. They feel very lonely. So this would be a place to talk with other people that are going through similar things as them.
Okay.
And then plus get education and knowledge, and we'll do succession plans. We'll do, a family constitution. We'll institute some of the other rules. I'm going to have a team. I have a team of professionals. So I have a certified financial planner. I have an insurance person. I have an estate planning attorney, trust attorney, an accountant, all a banker.
Wow.
So we have everything the person needs to run their business effectively.
The Inland Empire startup ecosystem industry is tremendously fragmented. A few top-tier hubs, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, are well covered by media, events, and data platforms. Finding reliable information relevant to startups or the tech industry in the Inland Empire is extremely difficult. As a result, startups can't scale fast enough. Investors are having a hard time finding the right deals, and corporates can't find the right companies to partner with for their innovation activities. Startempire Wire, the leading Inland Empire startup publication, is providing the Inland Empire startup ecosystem with the most accurate, engaging business and financial data, events, and news. Our reach of entrepreneurs, C-level executives, angels, VC investors, startup employees, key management at innovative corporates, and big tech is the solution for your B2B or B2C needs. As we build out our platform, we're looking for partners. This is your opportunity to get in on the ground level. If you're looking to align yourself with the local and growing startup and tech ecosystem of the Inland Empire, we have created the platform to get your name noticed and the opportunity for you to grow the recognition of your brand. Contact us today for availability and pricing options. We look forward to our partnership with you. Yes. And so how many days of the week would that be running?
We're going to do meetings every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So our grand opening is December 1st.
Okay.
At 5:30 here on campus. And then our first regular meeting will be in January.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And is there a limit to the amount of people who can be involved with it? What are the specific details of how to get involved?
Sure. So we're asking for a donation.
Yes.
And we're not specifying. So some people will pay more because this is a nonprofit and we're trying to help people. Other people, pay less if they, are a smaller business. So, it's going to average somewhere between $1,200 a year to $1,500 a year, maybe, to be a member for the year. And that'll cover all the meetings plus a few social events like a basketball game here at CBU and our
that's great.
Amazing Christmas concert that's world class.
No, that's amazing. No, that is I'm gonna tell you, I think that's really great. And are you guys reaching out to organizations locally here in the region as far as like trying to partner with them as well?
I could use more if you have.
Yes.
I've contacted some chambers of commerce. Where I've really gotten some traction is with the cities, believe it or not.
Really?
City of Moreno Valley is sponsoring a member.
Yes.
The city of Riverside has donated significant funds. City of Fontana, we put in a proposal. City of San Bernardino, we put in a proposal for significant funds to sponsor and help the family business. It would be ideal if I had enough sponsors where I didn't have to ask for donations of members and they could just come for free. That's my goal in the future.
And I'm pretty sure a lot of people are not aware that you guys are launching this. So if anyone's watching this podcast and you would like to reach out and become a sponsor, if you want to become a partner with the new center that is opening for family business, please reach out to Keanon. I would like to go into detail a little bit more and talk about, what are some examples of maybe some larger businesses that are family run?
Sure.
Like maybe kind of case studies you've done.
Sure. This is interesting because we have to break it down by family owned and family controlled, right? And so a lot of people don't know the difference. If you go to the local dry cleaner and it's a mom and a dad and maybe a son working there, they probably own that whole entire company themselves. They have no partners. Of course, it's not public, right? That's family owned, right? That's a small retailer. They probably own the entire thing, right? It's all theirs. No one's telling them what to do.
Yes.
Once you grow and you become larger, and then of course you sell some stock to the public, now you could be family controlled, where the family has either the majority of the stock or the majority of the voting control. So for example, Ford Motor Company, the Ford family's been in charge for over 100 years, right?
Wow.
They only own 2% of the stock, yet their stock is worth many times more than our stock is, and they control 40% of the vote.
Wow.
And so the Ford family will dominate that company for many, many, many years, right? So family owned, Chick-fil-A, 100% owned by the Cathy family, right? In-N-Out Burger, 100% owned by Lindsay Snyder, third gen. Hobby Lobby, 100% owned by the Green family. M&M Mars, 100% owned. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, 100% owned by the family. They've only had 3 CEOs in 75 years. I mean, And then family controlled, BMW, Michelin, Walmart, Walmart's family controlled, LG, Samsung. If we were in
Samsung. Wow.
Tyson Chicken. If we were in Europe, chances are 80% of us would be working for a family firm. They're old and they're large. And it sort of is not fair. Oftentimes people will call a family-owned firm a mom and pop. And that's sort of a derisive term because every company started out small. Yes. And you have the opportunity to scale up and grow larger, right? But if we were in Europe, we would be working for a family-owned firm, and it would be hundreds of years old. And people would be thinking, well, of course, everybody works for a family firm,
So, so this brings to mind just one question that I don't know how it ties in, but there used to be, family crest. People develop a family crest. Is that tied to like family business in any way or?
A little bit it is. I think it would probably be best to take the example of a multi-generational firm because that crest means something to the family. There's a history there. There's a heritage there, right? It actually means something. And so when we advise a multi-generational family firm, sometimes the firm can't hire all of the offspring. So that's one of the things we discuss on the family constitution is who can enter, how does someone leave, how does someone dispose of their stock or sell their stock, how do we value it? So we go through all those questions, right?
Wow.
But when we do a family retreat, we want to get the next generation involved. Why? And sometimes they're angry because mom and dad are working 12 hours a day and they don't see their parents. So all they hear about is business, business, business. So you do a family retreat, you go to some nice resort kind of thing, a vacation type of thing, and it's half business, half fun. And part of that is talking about the family heritage, what grandma and grandpa did. And you have money because grandma and grandpa did this and took a risk, started something new. And it's you can decide to do what you want to do because some people will decide not to go in the family business and we don't want to make them do that, right? But you have the opportunity available to you and you need to be thankful. And at least if you don't want to go into the family business, we sort of move them into the role of being on the committee for philanthropy. And that will get them involved in the history of the family firm and keep them involved with the rest of the family members, and the legacy of their grandparents. Like grandpa really liked giving to schools, so we're going to follow through on that, and that's how you introduce the young children into what it is about this family business that's so special.
Yes. So one of the things that I have a question about is, because of American culture and where it kind of is right now today, most people are very individualistic. How do people square that away with intergenerational wealth and building a legacy for families. Like there's a real dichotomy there of individualism. I want to do my own thing. I'm gonna be an entrepreneur versus I want to be a part of the family business. Yeah.
Right. So, for example, in my class, we talk all about the positives and the negatives, the good parts and the bad parts of family business. And some students decide, I don't want to go into my family's business. I want to do my own thing. And especially if they're third generation, think about it. By the third generation, they probably have some family wealth, and they can go to a college and they can study music. They can go be a doctor. They can go be a lawyer. They don't have to go to the junkyard.
Yes.
Like we're second generation, mom and dad picked them up from school and we're going to work, and they were pretty much needed to go to work, right?
No choice.
No choice, right? But in the third gen, they do have a bit of a choice. And that's why you see the dismal statistics of succession after the third gen. It gets pretty dismal, right? But, we advise them to go outside, get some experience, and then they'll see, and the research shows that after about 10 years, they do start wanting to come back because they see how tough it is out there in the real world, and mom and dad make a really nice living.
So that becomes an incentive, like the primary incentive. Is there any other incentive that would drive them to be a part? Is there any way, like, you would recommend people structure things to incentivize those third generation, people who want to get away a little bit,
We keep them involved with, family meetings, letting them know, just informing them what's going on in the business so that at least they have a knowledge of it, right?
Yes.
We do ask them to participate with all the good parts of the business, such as the charitable giving, philanthropy, things like that, right? And so that's fun and it's very fulfilling, even if they don't work for the family firm, right? But there's different goals for each generation. The first generation, the founder, the entrepreneur, they started this to make some money and build some wealth. And then along the way, they had children, and the children become interested. And so now the second gen's in there, and they worked hard. The second gen, they worked hard alongside their parents, and the big growth came usually when the second gen is there. Yes. And then here comes the third gen, and they're probably more financially assured, right? And they have much more freedom than the second generation had,
right?
And so it's we give them opportunities. We can play the bank if they want to go off and start their own firm. Oh, here's a good stat. If you come from a family business, you are 6 times more likely to start your own business than any other.
Wow.
If you came from a family that did not own their business. An example of this is I remember talking to my dad one morning. Hey, Dad, what you going to do this morning? Oh, I'm going to go to the bank and borrow $600,000. Oh, okay. Have a good day. That was not shocking to me.
Right.
I say that in my class, and certain students' eyes will get this big around. What? You're going to borrow $600,000? That was just business. So it's those people that see it close up. They don't see it as a risk, and they're more likely to take a risk and start their own. Not even go into the family business, just start their own.
Start their own.
Yeah, be entrepreneurial.
So it almost seems like being a part of an intergenerational business would be easier for some people, or almost it's the easier path to take, right?
The money's nice.
Yeah, right.
Money's nice, and
life is better to a great degree, right?
The money's nice until it isn't.
I'll
ask my students, how many have company cars and the business is paying for it, how many have cell phones and the business is paying for it, how many go on vacations and the business is paying for it. So those things are nice, right? But the problem is in the management and in the governance of the firm.
The governance and the management.
If dad is an authoritarian, and it's fun. What we'll do at the family business centers, we actually will break them up into cohort groups. So we'll put the first gen founders over there. We'll do the second gens here. We'll do the third gens there. And it's amazing. The first gen will be complaining about their children not being ready, not being as good as they were at that time. And then the second and the third gen will be complaining about grandma and grandpa and dad, saying they don't give us a shot to show what we can do. They won't trust us with any responsibility, right? So we have to bring the people together, have them communicate, and work through those issues.
Man, that really, it brings up a lot of thoughts in my mind about, like, okay, what if a person is first gen and they want to go this intergenerational route? How can they really, get a plan down, and move in that direction?
We need open communication, so we can do that with what we call family meetings, which are informal. Go to breakfast, just talk, right? We ask Junior, are you interested in this? This is the benefits. This is the disadvantage. Are you interested? Go to college, learn. If you're not going to go to college, then start at the bottom, pushing a broom so that you know everything about the company.
Yes.
By the way, where most family second gens do start.
Okay, yeah, pushing the broom, huh?
They don't start at the top. They earned their.
That's
earned
good.
Right? Yeah.
Well, because I think the second gen is a little bit pampered, probably, right? Because their parents had some success. Like the first generation, they're the grinders. They're the people who had the hard life, possibly. And they're more appreciative, of the struggle. And then, the saying, like what, strong men, what does make, what is the saying again?
Well, that's funny because there are numerous sayings around the world. It's hilarious. In America, it's shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations.
Oh.
In other countries, it's barn stalls to barn stalls in 3 generations.
Yes.
Every country has their own really well-known, saying about that, right? Yeah. So the second gen did come alongside and work with mom and dad, and they worked hard too, but they did get the fruit of the labor. They did start making some money, right? It's that third gen, the Paris Hilton complex.
Yeah.
It's that third gen that has the real tough
time.
And there's so many of them because now it's cousins. And they don't know each other. So the Cathy family, they used to every Sunday night, because there were so many cousins from Chick-fil-A, they had a conference call every Sunday night with people all over the country, just getting to know each other and making sure that their values were the same, that we're going to keep closed on Sunday, for example. We're going to stay private instead of go public. And the cousins got to know each other, right? So it's all about community. It's all about communication. And then the next thing we do is we have a family council. And so here, even though mom and dad may have the majority of the stock, here it's a formal meeting. It has an agenda. It has a time period that starts and stops, and everyone has a vote. And we sometimes even include in-laws, because when the son or the daughter comes home and says, oh, I'm going to get a pay cut or something like that, or some bad thing happening at the business, the in-law doesn't understand, why this has to be. But if they attend the meetings, full transparency, they would understand. They don't get a vote. Family members get a vote. But even though there's that one powerful decision maker that makes 67% of all decisions usually, that's a problem, right? We make better decisions when we have a diverse group making decisions, not just one person making a decision. Yeah. So that's an important thing to take care of. But with this family council, everyone has a vote. And if dad, for example, was an authoritarian leader, he might understand a little bit more when 12 people have their hands raised against him. He might take pause, even though he has all the stock and he can do whatever he wants. He might take pause that everyone else is on the opposite side of the table. Right?
And ask why, huh?
Yeah. And then another thing that we recommend, this is another tool of governance, is a board of advisors. This one's beautiful. I was calling on this electrical contractor, and he said, my dad started this company. He hired half the people here. He taught me everything I know. I hired the other half. So everyone knows the same stuff that everyone knows, right?
Wow.
There's no outside thinking, Wow. So a board of advisors is not a board of directors. So you don't have to do what they say. You're just taking advice from them. So family members should be there, but also invite on some professionals and some expert business people
from outside
for that different perspective that maybe we didn't think of, right?
Yes.
And we make better decisions that way. And they will also help on succession planning. They'll also identify who should be the next leader. Is a family member qualified? Let's identify their strengths and benefits and shore up what they need to improve on so that 5 years from now they can take over, right? And so here you've got outside viewpoints and because the family can be a little insular and not see the forest from the trees, and they can be biased about family and things like that. So the experts outside can help give us some unbiased advice.
Okay.
That's helpful.
I wonder how deep this goes, because at this point, in time, we're all like watching the funeral of the Queen.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be considered like a family business?
Absolutely. They call it the firm.
Wow.
The royals call it the firm. It's like a gigantic business, and
people don't think about that.
What that is called is they changed it just recently, where they will now allow females to inherit, and they can be the queen, and not just the firstborn male son. In the past, it's called the right of primogeniture, the firstborn male son. So if there were 10 daughters born first, it's that son that finally gets to be the king and has succession. So it's very much like a family business, but they did change it. So Prince William's kid, his daughter could become the queen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another question. The biggest banks in the world, are those all family businesses?
The ones in Japan?
Yeah.
Big ones like Fujitomo, I think. The ones in Korea, ones in Japan, they are.
Wow.
Yeah.
It goes really deep.
There's one in Spain. So I did research I've been reading Forbes magazine for like, I don't know, so old I'm too embarrassed to say, but let's just say like decades, right?
Yes.
And that Forbes 400 list is so much fun to read. It probably takes me 2 weeks to read the whole list. And how did these rich people get this way, right?
Yes.
And so I did a 10-year study on how these family firms, number one, how many of them were family, where did they make their money, how many came from family, how many inherited from family, and how many still run the family business, right? It was 44% that were associated with family.
Wow.
So
that's almost majority.
Yeah. They either inherited it or were still working there or something like that. So.
Okay. What was your dissertation on?
Second generation family business decision making.
Okay. Can people read that somewhere?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. Let me just be honest, they're not going to want to.
They're not going to want to.
It's a dry dissertation,
Okay, okay.
I've written 2 books.
Yes, please tell us, what are some recommended reading to really get into this, understand it better?
I'm biased. There's a textbook that I started when I first started my family business management class. And half of it are case studies in the back that are terribly boring, and it's like $225,
Yes.
And so I wrote my own, and it's like $30,
Yes.
like the economic principle of good enough. And so I'm the associate editor of the Journal of Family Business Management.
Okay.
And then I've written a book called Understanding the Family Business. It's now in its second generation.
Understanding the Family Business.
It got accepted by Harvard Business School, and they sell it by each chapter and pair it with their famous case study. So if a professor assigned a case study on a family business, you could pair, say, the governance chapter for background information.
Yes.
And they sell it for like $6 a chapter. So,
wow.
And it's in its second edition now. And then CBU, very nice, gave me a sabbatical, and I wrote my second book called Family Business Governance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where can they buy these? Are these on Amazon?
Amazon.
Family Business Governance. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Oh, this is so great. Okay, so if someone wants to come take your class as well, or go through the course you're doing, how do they get into that?
The best way would be at the Family Business Center.
At the
where
Family
we
Business
will have educational events that people can participate in.
Okay.
No promises right now, but maybe a year from now, after we've had a successful launch and things like that,
Yes.
I am going to start classes for people that want them, that don't have a college degree and don't want to go to college, right? And we'll have a
like auditing the class or something.
Yeah, there'll be a series of classes, and then they'll get a certificate, in family business management. But that's a year or two down the road.
Yes. Okay, so on a practical level for entrepreneurs who are first generation, they want to come to the Family Business Center. And that starts December 1st? You said when?
First,
December
December
1st.
1st at 5:30.
Awesome.
And we're going to be celebrating a 100-year-old business in its third generation, and
100.
the fourth generation is working there, and they're about 38, pushing 40 years old. So
That's great.
pretty impressive.
That's really impressive.
Very,
Okay.
very.
Okay, now we're going to just talk about the short-term goals within the next 2 months outside of the Family Business Center. What are two short-term goals you guys have out in front of you?
Ooh. In terms of CBU or in terms of family business?
Family business.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am. I'm. That's hard to answer because 100% of my time is spent recruiting members for the Family Business Center and showing them how we can be a resource to them. So every waking moment is spent doing this, publicizing it, making sponsorship deals.
So let's just say with regard to this, the Family Business Center.
I am planning out the schedule. I'm planning out the topics. I'm inviting speakers to come speak.
Yes.
People that have, done things such as the 100-year-old business, or we just went through a succession. Now let's tell everyone how to do that. We had a conflict, interpersonal conflict with two family members. This is how we managed through that.
Yes.
That kind of thing. We just instituted a board of advisors, and we agree that it's working this way. We'll have panel discussions. So it takes some work to invite people. So if anyone has family business experience, please give me a call. Will you put my email on this?
We will absolutely. You could give it out right now in the video, and we'll put it in the description as well.
Thanks. K Alderson at calbaptist.edu.
Awesome. All right. So now, future goals: 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years.
Whoa.
Not for. You could do it for the center,
So by then I will have significant sponsorship. By 5 years, I will have sponsorship and happy members, and some sponsor out there that feels very strongly in the significance of family business, probably a well-known one, will name it, and it'll be called let's just say the Jones Family Center for Family Business. And with that, we'll probably then have enough money to allow members to come for free and not have to have a donation for membership. We'll have it by then. The team will be working very tightly. All the sponsors, the lawyer, the CFP, the CPA, the insurance person, and we'll be able to, if a person wants to sell out, if a person wants to engage in an exit planning, like my children, I don't have any children. It's me and my wife. I inherited it from my mom and dad, but now we're coming to the end of the road and we need to sell it. So that team of people will be able to provide them with a succession roadmap, an exit planning strategy, things like that. So, and then of course, classes and leadership identification and development for the next generation, classes so they can get a certificate. We'll have peer groups where we separate the founders and CEOs, and we'll have a facilitator that is very knowledgeable and will help them advance. And then the second gen, and it's called the next gen, they're the ones that really need some help. I'll probably do those myself because I am one. And allow them to understand, here's how you navigate things, here's what you should do, things like that. So 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I want to be a resource to the inland region, and everyone knows that if you have a small business, if you have a family business, you should come to CBU for some of these resources.
Very awesome. Keanon, I really appreciate your time on this interview. This was amazing and really fascinating. As you can tell, I had a lot of great questions because a lot of people don't think about entrepreneurship and family business as being one-on-one, and like you said, it's very derisive with the mom and pops type thing. So what would you say to the person who who is ready to get started today? Like they're just ready to like start with like maybe governance, succession, all of that stuff. Do they need to wait till the launch, or like what do they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you very much. They can, send me an email.
Okay.
My phone number is 909-963-6291.
Awesome.
Send me an email though, and say what your particular issue is. Usually a family firm calls for one of two reasons. Mm-hmm. They're very private and they don't want to share. They don't like going to the bank and borrowing. They don't want to show their books to the bank. They're very private and they keep their dirty laundry hidden.
Yeah, close. Right? Yeah.
And we all have it. I have not met a family yet that doesn't have something,
Right.
So it's not to be embarrassed about. But they're very, very private. So
yes.
So anyway, call me, talk to me. It's one of two things, either succession or conflict. Those are the two things they finally say, we're fine. We don't need any family business advising. We don't need any family business help. We don't need to do this at all. We're just going to keep everything private and under the rug.
Right.
But then when they have conflict between two partners, and it turns into dysfunctional conflict where the business is being affected, now it's time to get some outside help, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then succession, you have a higher chance of going bankrupt due to a failed succession than you do from the economy or market forces. It's you have to do succession right. You can't do it. It's not an event. It's a long-term process that should take ideally 5 years. It's not a one-time event. You can't get a call from mom and dad, or mom saying, dad's in the hospital with a heart attack. I need you to come home and run the company.
Yes.
If that person has never met the customers, doesn't know the employees, doesn't know the business, most importantly, doesn't know the banker.
Yeah.
The banker will pull.
Yep. That's like the most important relationship, right?
They'll pull the loan, and the suppliers don't know them. They'll say, we've got a few $100,000 in terms here. We're going to change you to COD. And if the banker pulls in his line of credit, now you've got a cash flow crisis. And that's why these firms oftentimes don't pass on, because the incumbent generation needs to do a good job with identifying who is the next leader. Is that a family member? Maybe. Right. Sometimes it's not. And sometimes we need to hire a non-family person to be the president or CEO.
And that could be another conflict, right?
So, and sometimes we do that temporarily while the next generation is going to college and gaining and becoming, a young professional person and increasing their education and knowledge.
Okay, and typically after succession, like you said, the 5 years, that person is still in the background, right? The person who is, being succeeded, they're still somewhere in the background, right?
Yes, the incumbent. The incumbent.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, and you want to slowly sort of do this, where that person, and then the new person does this, and eventually, and it's really tough. Look at entrepreneurs.
Yes.
These are hard charging people. They're in charge. They're in control. You think they want to give up their power and control? No. They do not like talking about this, right? When they're 65 years old, they're willing to talk about it. And by then, Junior's 40 years old and, going to do really well. So it's a process. And we have to figure out, what are we going to do? What's dad going to do? Does he have enough money to fully retire? Right. Do we make a little mad laboratory workshop for here to go invent things? And still stay part of the company, but not have the weight of running it on him.
Yeah.
We have to create a plan for what's that incumbent generation going to do. Ideally, they should own the real estate. And lease it back to the family business, and there's some income for them there. You don't have to, have a full blown 100% sale to the next generation and burden them with debt.
Yeah. Well, okay. So there's so much more I want to ask you, but perhaps we can do this on a part 2. I really do appreciate it. Like, seriously, because I just keep thinking of questions, and I've enjoyed this time so much. Keanon, where can they find you and connect with you personally on the internet?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. That's the only social media I'm on.
All right. So connect with Keanon on LinkedIn. Keep in mind the upcoming launch in December 1st, and check out the book. It's on Amazon, right?
Amazon.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching and tuning into this episode of the Founders Podcast. Remember, we publish these podcasts twice per week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We appreciate your feedback. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video. If you're on any other podcast platform, give us a 5-star rating. Once again, thank you, Keanon, for coming on today.
My pleasure, Various. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everyone, peace.